know that the ministry visited you some time back. How has the conversation, how far has the conversation gone?
All right, so we had the Ministry of Works and Housing visiting our facility. And I think through that, we were introduced to one organization called NHF, National Home Ownership Fund, which they've given us one house, they've given us a contract of 1-bedroom house to build. So we are on it, now we are on the roofing stage, but the problem is how we can produce more. We have a lot of customers coming in, like a lot of people calling in for the project, but the capacity to meet those demands is not there. So that has been the challenge now.
When you talk about capacity, you are not talking about the technical aspects of capacity building. That is not the challenge. No. The challenge has to do with money, funding, yes, expanding the business. Yes. But out of curiosity, let me just find out from you, do we have people already occupying these projects that you have put up?
Okay, so we have completed one model house, which is now serving as the office for the company. The rest, we are at the stage of, we have one at the stage of window level. The other, we have 10 projects ongoing.
10 projects?
In different stages, yes. We've not actually completed any of them for now, due to capacity constraints, yeah.
Due to let's talk about money. I like to talk about money. So let's not be too technical, because we have all kinds of people from different backgrounds seated here. Who knows, right after our conversation, someone might approach you and, you know, take this conversation with you. So I would want us to talk about money. So when we come back, we will focus on what is really preventing you from getting to where you should, because this is very innovative. So I'll move on to Selassie, and then I'll come to Aaron. Midunu, Selassie.
Natural.
Afwan. Okay. I mean, let's end it there. Let's talk about how you are contributing to blue economy. You know, I'm just trying to be the layman that I am when I engage my guests. I like to learn from, you know, the roots. So when I read your profile and what you do, culinary, food, and all of that, I was asking myself, how does this sit with the blue economy agenda? Please educate us.
Food has a connection with pretty much every aspect of life. If we talk about how it links with our culture and our history, we can talk about how it links with nutrition. We can talk about infrastructure and how infrastructure supports it. So from my perspective, food is something that we need to continue to make linkages with. You seem as confused as my father was when I told him that I wanted to become a chef. I see the connection with food and how it can create economy and destroy economy, create health, and so on and so forth. So my approach is what I call New African Cuisine. It's really looking at culture, community, and cuisine, and how it can intersect with community, with environment, sustainability, and the economy. So if we're doing right, we can eat food that is part of our history and our culture. We can make an economy by making sure the people who are actually producing the food are benefiting from that, and we can do it in a sustainable way. So from the work that I've been doing, a lot of it ends up being education and research, but putting the food on the plate to allow people to see what that means as a positive taste case. So for example, how do we eat different types of fish? How can we encourage people to eat other types of fish? As a chef, I'm a tastemaker. I have the capacity to make something that's delicious. I have the capacity to bring memories back to people from their childhood. I have the capacity to also stimulate the economy. All of those things at the same time on the plate. But the conversation you can have without saying the words is having smaller portions of fish, maybe having more vegetables, having other forms of protein, having different types of fish. But one of the things that I want to say is that what happens on land ends up in our ocean. So in addition to what we're eating from the ocean, the foods we're eating and what we're doing to our soil is actually having a massive impact. So if we're looking at the sewage, we're looking at runoffs from synthetic fertilizers that we're using on land, we're looking at issues around galamsey and pollution. All of those things are ending up in our ocean. So how can we make smarter choices of what we're eating? So at my table, you'll see me using millet, rice, that is locally grown, which does not need synthetic fertilizer. So it's not just local rice, but it's an indigenous rice that comes from Ghana. I'm using fonio, I'm using sorghum, I'm using millet. All of those things do not require any synthetic fertilizer and are also great for climate change because they don't need a lot of water. So those are the decisions that go into putting together a plate that allows us to eat still with respect to our culture and coming up with new ways. So I think most of us want to be aspirational in our life. And so how do you create a dish that allows you to have memories of your childhood and maybe something your grandmother made for you that still allows you to feel aspirational and feel like you're moving into the future and not just in the past? And all of those things can happen on a plate. And that's really, I think for me, the space where we need to educate to start to think about why and what we eat and what impact that has on our country.
Right, what impact that had on our country. Now, in 2015, a report by the United Nations Development Program, UNDP, revealed that only 2% of Ghana's plastic waste is recycled out of the 1.7 billion produced annually. Over 73% of the waste, the report says, ends up in the water bodies, and we are told it is affecting marine life. As someone in the culinary industry, what do you make of this, and how can we really remedy this situation?
Whether it's your hand or your fork, it has a lot of power.
Which one do you prefer, your hand or fork?
It depends on what I'm eating. I mean, I very much, I eat with my hands, but I think that it's, people say that changing what you eat is more difficult than changing your religion. And that's why when it comes to behavior change, it needs to be put into as many aspects of our life as possible. Even if you look at how we have been eating since before, we're using the leaves to wrap our food. And then we stopped wrapping when, you know, styrofoam came into the system, and then now we're trying to go back. Even something as simple as toothbrushes, research has shown that, you know, our chewing sticks are actually more effective than toothbrushes. So it's important for us to actually go back into our history to understand what and why we're doing things and to be able to bring them back into our space. So as it pertains to the oceans and recycling, we need to think of, like for example, I don't use takeaway packs. For me, it's important for us to sit and eat at the table, to reconnect with each other, for us to I mean, one of the things I loved is the communal dining aspect of a lot of African cultures. We eat together, we share food together, and that teaches us a lot of different things. So it's really, how do we mix a lot of these different elements, whether it's from traditional wrappings, traditional ingredients, also traditional ways of eating. We were not eating fish with red before,
Right.
because you have the protein, you have the carbohydrates, you have the fats already in red. The addition of fish or pieces of smoked fish to flavor the food is something we should look at. Why did we, you know, start adding it? Do we need it all the time? And how do we respect what our ocean is able to give us as well?
All right, thank you very much, Selassie. I'll come back to you. We are not done yet. So let me move to Stephanie. Stephanie, now let's talk about climate change and plastic pollutions, I mean, which are some of the major challenges of the ocean. Of course, climate change is causing rise in sea levels, displacing indigenous communities, and of course, burying the heritage of local people under the belly of the ocean. We've all heard of the Quetta tidal wave. And as an environmental consultant, how do you think this contributes to the problem? I also went digging, and I went on Twitter, and I see how passionate you are when it comes to capacity building, issues concerning the environment. Let's talk about this.
Thank you. The one thing that you were not unable to mention earlier was that during my consultancy, at the moment I'm consulting with the GIZ, and what we are doing is going to very deprived communities and regions that are affected the most by issues with relation to the circular economy and climate change, and building capacity in those areas. Now, what we have done is to target these environments or these places based on their problems. The idea is to sell them new ways in the green economy where they are able to get certain jobs that they are not used to, help them and connect them to certain trainings, and be able to make them acquire skills that help in eradicating plastic pollution and climate change issues. Now, in terms of climate change and the circular economy, the reason why we need to have a holistic view, as I've been propagating and building capacity on, is this. We look at solutions that people build individually. After we've done these trainings, we've done these capacity buildings, some people come up with ideas, like entrepreneurs. They come up with very smart ideas. Now the problem becomes funding. The problem becomes adequacy. The problem becomes if we are developing SMEs to be able to be in the blue economy and in the green economy and the circular economy, how are we able to advance their skills? Because when they become entrepreneurs, they need to keep pushing. They are going to give us the on-ground solutions. So we do that, we put those two together to be able to advance financing, such that if we go and an investor is looking for a metric that says that we need somebody in the green economy, we need somebody with the circular economy, or we say we want somebody that has to do with only climate change, how much carbon you are taking out of the environment because of what you are doing in relation to your work, how much plastics you're taking out, sign you up to those funds, and you can solve those problems holistically. So that's why we build capacity, that's why we get on the ground and do this in person, and that's why I'm passionate about capacity building.
In that case, let's talk about your collaborators. Do you have any partners that, supporting you when it comes to financing what you do?
Yes. For instance, it's project and project-based. For instance, we've been running a project with the GCA, the Global Center for Adaptation, and Care International. What they do is that they're training trainers. So they're training us as trainers, or people in my organization as trainers, and other organizations here. And then these people go out and train. They've given us some funding to be able to train other people in the environment. Now, because we know that our problems locally are beyond just climate change, and they involve a big part of the circular economy, we sell the idea together. That's what we do in terms of collaboration to get these things done. Because if we say we're going to wait for funding for circular economy only, it might delay the plans we have for circular economy, 1. 2, the people we are trying to reach would be far back. And the world is moving fast. As we speak now, the Intergovernmental Negotiation Committee has been set up to develop a world treaty on circular economy by 2024. And on the Monday, they were meeting in Paris to be able to come up with some of these treaties we are going to sign and we'd have to do, but we have to be steps ahead in terms of building capacity for the people that are able to take up these opportunities when they hit the ground. Before we rectify, we're already prepared. So that's why we build capacity as well. And these are the kind of things we do. The third thing I would also mention in terms of collaboration and the number of people we collaborated, when we go for our international programs on climate change, because that's what we have a lot of commonalities in, like COP27 last year, we have these conversations about Nexus again, because you need to sell them together to be able to get and push more funding. Yes, circular economy is growing internationally, but we've seen that climate change has spearheaded when it comes to this. And there's a lot more funding for these kind of endeavors. So that's what we do in terms of collaborating. Once we do that and sell it at that level, when we come home, we have partners already seeking to do things with us that cover both spaces.
I'll move to, of course, I'll come back to you. I would want us to talk about, you talk about money, you were being very diplomatic about finance. Please, let's just say it as it is. We need money, we need more investors to come into this field. This is one of the sustainable approaches to blue economy, and it must be tackled as such. So this is very innovative for all of us here. You know, when I had a meeting, your name came up, and we were talking about how you've been able to think out of the box to do this. I was hoping 300 people, that's quite a number in terms of getting other people to join the train and also go with you in that direction. When we come to money, is one of the problems you are faced with now. How sustainable is this dream and vision?
So the journey has been very difficult. We've won several grants, one from the SDG innovated in 2019, and also all from UNDP. But those monies are not, I wouldn't say it's not good enough to move us to the next level, because even the cost of one mode is how much. The journey has been very difficult. Going to the bank, they tend to look for businesses that they already know. When you talk about plastics into building or construction material, they try to be more like they are afraid to even understand what you're saying. So it's been very, very difficult. We've tried all means. The only thing that is keeping us is the passion that we have for the plastic, because I myself, I started plastics businesses, like working with the plastic at the age of 13, which is child labor, but I have to do that. Yes, I won't mention the company's name, which is child labor. So it's the passion that I have that is
you know we have the UN residence coordinator here with us, right?
Yes.
And, right.
So it's passion that is driving us until now. Because if you are looking at how the government and other, the banks and other institutions is responding to what we're doing, it's like more of the talk, but the action, we don't do it. We mentioned numbers, conferences, they are all good, but that contributes to about 30 to 40% of the problem. The action, we need to take action. That is what is the problem now.
Perhaps we haven't understood how this is of essence when it comes to the conversation around blue economy. Maybe people cannot really understand what you are trying to do. People cannot really relate, except for a few who are at the top. Of course, this is a very high-level gathering. So everyone here, I assume, can relate to some of the issues we are sharing or discussing here. Now, beyond that, the people who can give you money may not really be in tune with this vision of yours, yet we are all affected one way or the other. What are the other ways that we can, what are some of the ways that we can all look at in terms of equipping you, ensuring that you are well, equipped financially, you have everything you need? Because once we can share your vision, it is difficult for us to invest in this. What are we not doing right in this case? Is government buying into this idea anyway?
Okay, I'm coming there. So we have over 300 waste pickers. They are mainly women that goes around to pick the plastic. Then we buy them per the kilo they were able to collect in a day. Now, we keep on making, we keep on giving advice to the public that we shouldn't litter like this. When these women bring the plastic to us, because of our capacity issues, we tell them, take it back. Those beach cleanups, they will call you, we want to bring plastics. I'll tell them, no, I don't have capacity. What are we trying to tell them? Now, the metals that we see around, first, you can see metals or used utensils that are not really in use around. But now, why are you not seeing them? They have value for it. When you take it to the steel companies, they buy them, they pay them, they also move on with their lives. But here is the case, even what we are doing, the government is not really patronizing our products to encourage us, and yet we will say, the plastic is on the street, it's polluting. We keep on talking. One house, one bedroom house, I need over 13,000 kilos of plastic waste to build that house. So you can imagine if we are building thousands of them. You can imagine the amount of plastic that we are taking away. But these numbers, I don't know whether they are not hearing of it or they are not really responding to what we are actually doing. There is no subsidy, nothing. You're on your own. Like I said, I'm just in it because of the passion I have for plastics. I did network engineering, but I'm not really, I don't have the passion for that. My passion is to deal with plastics. So that has been the case. Now, Even with the electricity, okay, the amount they are charging now, because plastics, you need high energy to melt them. And you can imagine the bills that we are paying. If you have all this subsidy coming in, you can imagine the more people we can employ, the houses that we can build to help the housing deficit that we have in Ghana. All these benefits are there, but where is the help? Where is the funds to push? We are not only seeking for free money, even if it's a soft loan, to help us move to the next level of the business. Because we can't fight the plastic problem alone. We need support to move to where we want to be.
Well, I'm sure there will be time. Hopefully, I hope Jerry will be kind enough to us to give us maybe just 5 minutes for us to take some questions from our audience. I believe there are people who would also want to contribute to the discussion, and I want to believe something good would come out from there. Yesterday, the president was here. I think we should have had this conversation before the president. It's rather unfortunate, but I also believe we have people who can equally send the message to the president. We need to pay attention to this. Now, for me, I'll come back to you, Mark Boateng. I want us to talk about, you talk about how practical you are, and I want to talk about collaborations at where you are. What is happening with you and other parties? Do you have any events that you collaborate in terms of best practices, in terms of inspiring these young folks to also continue to see what is happening outside, so they are motivated and inspired to carry on with the studies from the classroom?
Okay, so thank you very much. Yeah, so collaboration, let's say I try my best.
No. You try your best.
Yeah, so let me explain. So, for instance, I'll give you an example. When we are working on the autonomous underwater robot system, when we were trying to build this, and we went around trying to collaborate, there was this funny quote somebody passed in passing at the office. He said, we are here, we are in Ghana, we are hungry, we are thinking about going to find Mami water. Okay. The person invited us for funding, like we went to talk, but after going through all that, okay, it was funny at that time, but for
but
the
really,
team,
it's not funny.
Yeah, it was a bit discouraging. Okay.
It was a bit discouraging.
It was a bit for me. I like to be knocked down and get back up. If you want to innovate, I think my panelist will tell you, like, you have to get used to being knocked down, being beaten, but you always have to find the strength to get back up and continue what you are doing, because it's passion and probably say it's destiny that drives you to do what you are doing. So we try, like with the ministries like MESTI, yeah, like
that's the Ministry of Environment, Science and Technology.
Yes, I think they've shown some particular interest when we were working on some of these things. When we were doing things like the biodegradable plastics, which has huge implications. Like we could take that and put into biodegradable fishing nets, okay, which could be a very good solution for the fisher folks, because some of these ghost nets can be a challenge to the coral reefs. Again, also, if you look at developing satellite technology to monitor the oceans, no, we have them, so we try to do some collaborations with other institutions, with GMET, and I think even a funded program that is coming up, and some of the technologies is going to be developed by the university for some of these purposes. And all this is things that we've done in-house. It's things that the students, some of the students, particularly those who have trained under me, have learned that you have the freedom to imagine whatever you want to be. It's not just the academic skills, but the ability to think for yourself and to will that you want this to happen and make it happen. It's moving from 0 to 1. It's something that any innovator is something who can do that is proud of. So we try to partner. Some institutions help us. Some will give you the promises at the end. They will fail you, but it starts the game. You just have to keep continuing.
You just have to keep going, and here we are today, and we are having this conversation. It means we are making progress, right? At least we have the right people in this room, and they are paying attention, so it means we are going somewhere. I'd like to talk to you. You mentioned the skills. You talked about capacity building. You talked about how important it is for us to begin the conversation now and even at the international level. You've also mentioned the challenges. I think if anybody is handicapped when it comes to essential tools needed for them to elevate to the next level, they are unable to get there because they don't have what it takes. How does the future look?
I'll be a ruthless optimist to say that in as much as we as a world, so beyond Ghana, we are fighting to resolve the issues around the circular economy. We're trying to create alternatives to packaging so that we will not just be solving a losing battle where we are producing new ones to replace it. We also have certain instrumental things. So I'll pick my words carefully. Think about SMEs. Think about NELPLAS, for example. Imagine if subsidies, because he's a businessman, he runs a business. So many entrepreneurs in this space are running businesses, but they seem to have to do it for the passion. But business doesn't make that kind of sense.
Passion is not enough.
Passion is not enough. It must make profit sense. And if profit is enough, the investors will put money in it. So if their goods are subsidized, I'll give you another example. In about 2017, 2018, a partner of mine and I tried to import alternatives to packaging into the country. In terms of, in quotes, the takeaway bags. Someone was making them out of cassava and we wanted to implement that strategy here. We import our first prototype because they have the licensing to run that and to produce it, so we can't copycat it as that. And we calculate the pricing that the local Ghanaian will have to pay for that product. And if you take about the takeaway bags, the normal rubber bags, about a whole pack would have to buy one of the bag. Now, if you are a consumer and you go to a shelf and you want to buy that, I don't know what the choice would be, but it doesn't make rational sense. You would have to be passionate beyond that to be selective about environmental things, to buy more expensive things. I went to Decathlon to buy gym suits, and as it stands, I would have to look out for things that are environmentally friendly, because you want to live by the principles you sell out. I go, and the most expensive things on the shelf are the environmentally friendly ones. Now, to make business sense, the pricing has to be subsidized. That alternative would have been on the market very successfully if we got a subsidy from the state, from development organizations, to reduce the cost on the final consumer and be able to sell it off for a while till we find more sustainable and cheaper ways to get it sold. So these are some of the challenges that we face on the ground. Concerning capacity building on the field, people's ordinary education becomes a problem. The fundamental problems that the country already faces, we face them as well. People don't have, certain communities are very rural and they are affected by climate change, affected by plastic pollution. Some of these towns you mentioned in Keta, some of these people are fisher folks, and their concern with the environment has to do with getting what they get out of it. Now, if we are going to go to that community and take that child or that young man or that old man and say that let's move you up, we need to be able to build a capacity. We build capacity on something. So if your education, for instance, is JHS and SHS, sometimes it's a struggle. Because if you had an academic degree beyond the basic one, then we can build your capacity because you already have the existing skills to do that. So then we now have to push that. They advance and go and keep pushing so that their children will go to school or they themselves will find additional adult education. So we can introduce them to certain concepts that can be very technical in this space. So these are some of the challenges we generally face.
Thank you very much. Let's talk about how the future looks for you.
For me, I see the future to be very bright if we are able to put things right. Now, I forgot to mention this. We had this grant application with UNIDO 2 years now to give the funds to us to what? Increase our capacity. Can you imagine for 2 years now, we are still planning, work plan, other things? How do we move forward? You even have to call that, is it ready? As if you are chasing the money for your personal staffs. Meanwhile, we keep talking about numbers. I'm not saying this because Honorable is here. Last time, somebody sent me a video. I have never discussed with him how he was begging for an institution, which I will not mention the name, to help me. So when I got a call that this program is coming on, if I had other things to do, but I said, no, I have to come. I'm not saying this because he's here. I saw this, they took a video and sent it to me that, look, why must we go that way? We keep on talking about the problem. If we don't put in actions. One time we had a conference and one gentleman was saying, but the pure water sachet, now they are picking it. It's true they are picking it. The truth is, those pure water sachet bags, they bring it to us, we convert them into pellets, and they produce black poly bag with it. Nobody is picking the black poly bag because of what we think is in it. So they are saying, oh, but we are not importing more virgin material into the country. They are using the pure water sachet bags, the sachet, to produce the black ones, which nobody picks it. The technology that we are using, we don't care what kind of plastic is it. We can use it. So the problem is there, but the action, we are not taking it. We only talk about the problem, talk about the problem. Talking, discussing is also part of solving the problem. But like I said, it's about 30 to 40%. If you don't put in action, we will keep on having meetings, and the problem will still be there.
Well, we will keep talking, and I'm sure we are currently in the right space, and definitely we will have some interventions, or we will make a way. I know this will happen. Now, let me talk to my foodpreneur. Let's talk about the future when it comes to what you do and the Blue Revolution.
I think that over the last 9 years that I've been doing this, I've seen that there's a lot of young cooks and chefs that are starting to buy into this concept, and I think all of us are looking to find ways to continue to bring pride and dignity into our food. So I think that's a step forward. I think that there still requires a lot of education. I think the last panel before this was talking about it, but social and behavior change is integral to every aspect of change. If we want to change the way we look at plastic, if we want to change the way we look at our ocean, all of this requires social and behavior change. And currently, I would say that we need to integrate it into everything from Kuma Wood movies to